But LSU football made a move yesterday and announced that they were promoting a defensive analyst, John Jancic, to special teams coordinator and outside linebackers coach. Bruce Feldman had it first over at The Athletic. Jancic replaces Polian, who was moved to an off-the-field position for this upcoming year. Jancic has spent the past couple of years as a defensive analyst on the Georgia staff. At LSU this past year, he served out by serving as a senior analyst on the defensive staff under Matt House. Jancic got his start back in 1991, so he's been around for a while. He's made it to the Power 5 level back in 2005 when Georgia hired him as a linebackers coach and then promoted him to a co-defensive coordinator. So he comes over with some DC experience, including his time at Cincinnati, where he was a full-time defensive coordinator for a year. He now steps in and will call the shots on the special teams, and he will also call and coach the jack linebacker spot, which is a spot that B.J. Ojulari was playing this past season.
He's been everywhere.
Tennessee,
Kentucky,
he's got a good
Georgia.
resume. He's
Yeah,
got a
he
good
really
he's got a really good SEC resume.
Yeah, he does.
And obviously Brian Kelly, familiar with him. Speaking of familiarity, Brian Kelly also hired Bob Diaco, who has been in coaching for a while now. Diaco, an older coach, been in the trade for over 2 years, actually has a time and spent some time as a head coach. He was a head coach up at UConn for a while. And, again, very familiar with Brian Kelly. He's now
Were they together at Notre Dame?
They were together at Notre Dame for a while and kind of came up together.
Yeah.
Of the same generation, of the same age. And he's now on staff as an offensive analyst for LSU. So a couple of moves being made here before spring practice happens for the Tigers as LSU gets their special teams coordinator announced as yesterday. They make it official with John Jancic, who they promoted from a defensive analyst to a special teams coordinator and outside linebackers coach. We've talked about this a little bit. Look, coaching special teams at LSU, it's not brain surgery. It's not from a football preparation standpoint. You've got very much the pick of the litter of the roster, right? I mean, you're dealing with some of the elite talent in college football, or at least from recruiting standpoints. You've got a lot of guys to choose from, specifically guys that can cover kicks, guys like defensive backs, guys like linebackers, guys like wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, specialty type players that you can put out there, right? It looked as if last year LSU really kind of overthought the process a lot. I mean, it was too much of changing guys in and out and returning. It looked as if the cover units were changing their strategy weekly on how they were covering kicks. Were they kicking the ball out of bounds? Were they kicking the ball into the corner? It was like, look, you're making this a lot harder than it really needs to be, man. If you've got a guy that can kick the ball out of the end zone, do that 100% of the time. And just take the kickoff out of the game. Right? Like, just don't even make it a threat. If you've got a guy that can kick it out of the end zone, tell him just to bust it out of the end zone every single time he steps out there. A lot what Avery Atkins was doing while he was at LSU. Think about LSU's special teams unit under Greg McMahon during that 4-year run. They're as good, as clean, as crisp as I can remember in covering the program. And, we've been doing it for a while now. And to have the special teams that solid and that dependable is such a de-stressor for the program, right? Think about how many times you gasped, you tightened up, you didn't want to look when the special teams went onto the field this year. And not just the field goal unit. Everybody, the punt team, the punt return team, the kickoff team, the kickoff returns, every single unit under the special teams department was a stressor this season, not only for the fan base, but for the coaching staff, for the players. I mean, you could sense it. And from what I thought, or at least it looked like, it was just a lot of, like, this is way too difficult than it needs to be. You know, rotating kickers, rotating punt returners, rotating guys that are out there each week, you know, having true freshmen step out there in the first game of the year and ask him to block the blind side on a field goal. Just stuff that you're like, why? You know, I mean, just have this group organized, know who's supposed to be on each unit, line them up. I mean, you can see guys. I mean, like, you remember Polian last year, like running down the hash marks,
Yes,
and like running out in the middle of the field, like on the numbers. It's like, yo, bro, get over here, man.
I mean,
line your guys up.
He was on the
Make
field.
sure you've got 11 to go out there, and they're the right. Everybody in the stadium sees you with your yellow hat and your sunglasses, man. I mean, just get your guys ready to cover the kick.
You're the only one that doesn't fit in.
I mean, good God. I mean, this guy's dancing out in the middle of the field in between plays, and it's like they're fumbling kickoffs. They're fumbling punts. It's like, this is way too more difficult than it really needs to be. You know, I mean, just find a guy that can get the guys lined up, get them out there, stay in their lanes. If you've got a guy that can kick it out of the back of the end zone, do that. If you've got a guy that can catch it and make a play, put him back there at punt returner, and there's no way you can sell me that on LSU's roster, whether it's down or not, whether it's a down roster and they're going through a rebuilding process, or if it's, you know, like 2019 and they're pumping out pros every other pick, LSU is always going to have a playmaker that can catch the ball out of the air, make one guy miss, and potentially take it to the house. Always. Every single year, they will have at least one person that can do that. So for LSU to be in safety punt return type stuff makes 0 sense to me. 0. Put a playmaker back there that can change the scoreboard. LSU's been doing this since way before I was alive. I mean, Billy Cannon was catching punts in the 50s. When I was a kid, Todd Kinchin was doing it. Eddie Kennison was doing it. Dominic Davis was doing it. All the way up from Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu, and everybody in between. LSU has always had a playmaker, a game changer. Skylar Green, a scoreboard changer at punt return.
Jordan Holiday.
I mean, like, put somebody back there that can make a play. Quit overthinking this stuff. And just getting a guy in there that can just say, hey, look, man, this guy's been around it. He's been around the SEC. He knows what good special teams looks like. Just roll him out there and don't hurt the program if you're special teams. Like, don't be a liability. You know, if you can produce any points, that's gravy. But don't take points away.